In the heart of Westport, the credit union is a part of daily life. Locals come here to manage their loans and savings, businesses find support for growth, and young people open their first account. Today it serves more than 15,000 members across the West Mayo region.
The credit union is like a local bank run by the community for the community. We're loyal, we're local, and I suppose we also offer two things: that we are digital when you want it and human when you need it. We have 3 offices. We have an office in Newport, an office in Louisburgh and Westport, and obviously the online presence. And we have 17 staff in total, and those staff then on a Friday and Saturday will go to the sub-offices and staff them out there.
The credit union has evolved over the years from being a nod and a wink type years ago to loaning 2 and 6pence here and there and getting people over their weekly cash flow to quite a significant business. Westport Credit Union is one of the biggest in the country. Its deposits are huge for a small town. But with that comes an awful lot of compliance and regulation. And Westport is probably one of the best that I've seen in making sure that everything is compliant in all ways.
So, for example, like now we have current accounts and debit cards and all that goes with that, and then we have mortgages, and we have a huge selection of personal loans for everything really. So, and we've full online banking. We digitised everything, so people now can join the credit union online. They can upload their documents, they can verify their ID, and they can apply for a loan online, and that loan can be issued without them ever coming near the credit union.
In 1964, Westport was like many towns affected by emigration and limited financial opportunity. When a young bank clerk from County Monaghan gained employment in Westport, he was approached by members of the local Legion of Mary to join their group. He politely declined and instead posed a different idea. What about a credit union?
So Philip Curtin was the guy's name. We met him in the tea cosy where all the non-alcoholics used to congregate. It was a great spot, but anyhow, he came in, and of course we tried to recruit him. And, oh no, he wasn't interested. He said, I'll tell you what though, if you were interested in doing something useful, I would be interested. Like what, we said? Setting up a credit union. Credit union, what's that? Oh, he said, I have 2 uncles involved in one and cloners. I'll get on to them. And they, in turn, put us in touch with Nora Hurley herself, founder. And long before distance education was invented, Nora conducted a correspondence course with us. And we met in the local library. And the study group thrived. After about 4 months meeting, Nora kept sending us questions and we kept sending back the answers. She allowed us to start saving after 3 months, so that when we opened up, we'd have a few bob to start giving out as loans, start generating income and kind of hit the ground running. And it worked out. It worked out very, very well.
From £0.50, that was the kitty when it started off in 1997, £0.50. And then in 2024, the assets were 112 million, which is incredible. And the dedication for those early volunteers in particular, and I really thought it was important to honour that, because when I was thinking doing it, I was thinking, these guys were in their 20s. They were in their 20s. I mean, would you get a group of young fellas today? Maybe you would, but maybe not for something like this. And they just wanted to do something for their community. And like when they started off, it was kind of an offshoot of the Legion of Mary, a project. So they started giving up their Saturday mornings to do kind of lessons in how to be a credit union. And they then had to chip in money themselves every week to savings to show that they could save.
Just the general feeling, right, that we're a group, we're all young lads now, so there's all ladies in the group, it was a study group, we called it, and they were saying, well, you get nowhere, you're wasting your time and so on. Now, I was Secretary of Chairman of Commerce, so I brought it up at Chairman of Commerce meetings, and in fairness, there were a few there business people that did come out and support us and joined us, but for a long time there was a suspicion about anything connected with money and so on.
National leaders like John Hume inspired the study group, with members from Westport Credit Union travelling to Derry to meet him.
Put in touch with John Hume, who was obviously very prominent in the credit union in Derry. The great success already there, it was very big. And John Hume was getting going in politics at the time. But he kind of, we were up there once or twice, and they had great ideas about development and so on, which came true, and they were great organisers. So that helped us too, because there was no other credit union between us and Derry at the time.
The credit union, launched in September 1964, began operating one evening a week in the Railway Hotel before moving to the former Mayo's Bakery, which also had an immigration bureau to the back. But how could they spread the word about this new financial institution?
And it's seeing a headline like this, novel savings method for workers, because we forget that people didn't know what credit unions were in this country. They had been set up in America, I think, in North America before that. But in Ireland, I mean, the first credit union was only a couple of years going.
We operated out of the bus, it became the bus office, there, for about a year. For about a year. And Saturday night and after last Mass on Sunday, and we kept that up for years and years.
It was a peak weekend, or a peak time to do business, and but the members that come in, now sometimes they'd have the little slip filled out. Other times, whoever was doing teller filled it out with them, and take the cash, give them change. If they were negotiating a loan, that wouldn't happen till Tuesday night evening. The credit commission met on Tuesday evenings. So if somebody wanted to get a loan, they'd have to wait till after that meeting. But it was just routine. I mean, you'd have a group of people coming in around that time on a Sunday.
Jackie Foley was one of the founders, and he worked in the textile factory. And if they could get into the factory, if they could get permission to go in and start taking collections at the time. So when people used to get paid, they'd get permission to go into a factory, and like in the minutes it was kind of, can we approach the boot factory, and who would do that?
My father used to work in the shoe factory, and I remember him telling the story where at the end of a Friday evening, when they get their wages, that they would go around, some representative on behalf of the credit union would collect maybe £10 tin bob or a pound or so at the time, whatever it was, and he would come down physically and hand in the collection from the shoe factory, and everyone had their own account down there at the time. That's, I'm talking about maybe early 70s maybe.
The credit union gave out small loans, mostly less than £50, and for items like washing machines, bicycles, clothing, or events such as Christmas and Holy Communions. Many of the early members also tried to concentrate on savings to ensure they got loan approval.
And we were smart enough to say, look, it doesn't matter how much a week. It's the consistency, putting something every week, no matter how small it is. And we said,
That was the criteria.
In a bank, if your repayments are up and down, they're very worried. So we won't be. We'll know that on a good week, you give us a few extra bob. And if you can manage the minimum amount on a bad week, you're in business. The biggest challenge, believe it or not, we had was our members were too thrifty. They didn't want to borrow.
They wanted to use their savings.
They'd save. If they wanted to get something, they'd save up, and so they had the money with their drawers and go and buy it.
Liam Grant got involved in the early 70s, a time when the volunteers continued to work recruiting members and encouraging savings. It grew steadily with close to 300 members at the time, despite economic turbulence.
I worked in the post office just down the road from here, and Richie Joyce was involved, was one of my colleagues in the post office, and he was very much involved with the credit union at the time. And he got a number of us, we say, to come to the credit union to do the paperwork. When we finished in the post office, we'd come across the mall and go to the credit union, and we'd write up the dockets. So when people come, the credit union was open on from 2 to 4 and 4 to 6 on a Saturday and a Sunday morning, and the pay-in slips would be all left in the credit union, and Richie would pick them up after Mass on Sunday, and he'd sort them into numbers, and then we'd come in on maybe Monday evening, Tuesday evening after work, and we'd tot all those. Now there were no computers, no calculators, it was all tot them up, and it was pounds, shillings and pence. So on every docket, like somebody might come in with €5, and there might be 30 cents going to or pence going to the interest, and £2 or £3 going to the loan repayment, and the balance then would go to shares.
1977 was a good year for the credit union. They bought their office on Bridge Street, and it was also the year that Allergan, a pharmaceutical company, opened in Westport, prompting one of the biggest payroll deduction schemes to date.
At the time, Paddy Hoban was the chairman of the credit union at the time, and he was also involved in the rugby club. And Jim Kiley was after coming to town as the new manager in Allergan, and he was also involved with the rugby club. So Paddy Hoban and Jim were buddies. So Paddy had asked Jim if we could go to Allergan and maybe encourage some of the staff in Allergan to join the credit union. So Paddy Hoban, Michael Riley and myself went out to Allergan, met with Jim Kiley, and he gave us a tour of the building. And he brought us around, we said, met some of the senior management, and we kind of explained to them, we said what was involved or whatever. So just out of the blue, Jim said, we're going ahead with this, he said, so I'll put in £100 a fortnight. So kind of the other guys had little choice but to join. And that was the beginning, really.
And as the years went by then, into the 80s and 90s, as Allergan grew, yes, obviously the credit union grew along with it because more and more employees were getting involved in the deduction scheme.
Yeah. During the 80s, the figures started, employment figures increased in Allergan. It grew in tandem with it, I feel. And a word of mouth about the credit union in Allergan helped the deduction scheme. I remember people often approaching me to start up the deduction scheme because they had heard that Tommy Joe had already bought a car because he got a loan from the credit union, and he wanted to do the same, or she wanted to do the same.
When Allergan opened up, there was a lot of young people looking to get cars because they were now having a job where the shift might start at 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, the bike was fine for getting around when you were in some other job, but you had to be drawing up to the gates of Allergan at 5 to 8 in the morning, so you need a reliable car. So a lot of the young people who were getting jobs there, and the older people, they were coming to the credit union for their cars.
There was one in the post office, and there was one in Lastra, which is just up the road from us here, Northern Feather, and the Carrickdown. They all kind of joined, but they were smaller, they didn't have the number of employees that we had in Allergan. Like in the post office, I suppose at the time, well, prior to in the 70s and up to 1983, we had the telephone exchange, was about maybe 60, 70 people working there, and then we had the clerical and the postman, and but that would be a smaller group. But then we said when Allergan came, we were talking about hundreds. You had the income. We were sure every week the figures coming in, we say, from Allergan, and then the people in Allergan started borrowing from the credit union.
The credit union was operated solely by volunteers for the first 17 years. Then in 1981, the directors decided that paid staff were needed to manage the growth. Long-time volunteer Francis Gavin became the first employee.
It was an actual euphemism in Westport. If you wanted to buy something expensive or you needed money, geez, we better talk to Francis about that. And everybody knew what you meant. It meant you were going into the credit union.
My brother Joe was involved at that particular time, and he was the town clerk here in Westport. So he signed up all the family. My brothers, sister, father and mother, we all signed up as such. And then when he left Westport, went to Castlebar, town clerk in Castlebar, there was a little vacancy, so I slipped in just at that stage as a volunteer.
And you used to do the Sunday shift rather than the Saturday?
From after last mass. Last mass was on 12 o'clock, and we were 12 o'clock until 3 o'clock. John James Flynn, the late John James Flynn, and myself. As it happens, the late John James Flynn turned out to be my father-in-law in time afterwards. I married his daughter. But it was very good. It was great to work with him. He taught me one thing from the very beginning. When we went in first, we had deposit slips. So you write down the shares, the loan payments, the interest and the total. Each individual will have that and write into their little book, little pink book they had as well. When that was finished and the doors are closed, you took all the deposit slips, put them into a summary sheet. So you add up your summary sheet, all the savings, loans and payments for the day. Then you check the cash against the summary sheet. And John James Flynn was a stickler for that. I want to go out 3 o'clock on Sunday, go for a cycle or something. No, it hasn't balanced. There's 6pence out. I said, John James, only 6pence. Francis said, it's 6pence today. He said, it's a shilling tomorrow. Get it right, you can go then. I can't say anything at all about it. Every minute of it was a pleasure, and the people were just fantastic. And I'm just amazed to think that even today I'm meeting children that were tots, now they're adults, and they still chat about it. To me, Credit Union was just my life, and I really loved every minute of it.
We had, I suppose at any given stage we would have had maybe 20, 30 volunteers which would be doing the work that the computer is now doing.
While women got involved very early on, it seemed to be men that were, it was your men that sort of had the Saturday mornings to go out and do these things. But women very quickly got involved, who kind of were brought in to kind of man the barricades, to sit at a counter when we got the premises on Bridge Street.
My brother Joe was involved at the time, Joe Gavin. So he got me involved, and I really enjoyed meeting the people coming in. Same regulars, every day came in.
Yeah.
And they'd all be lined out outside the door waiting to come in to save their few pounds.
And how long would you open for?
3 hours, was it, Myra?
I was working with Mayo County Council, and Michael Gormley was my boss. And Michael decided that, well, really I hadn't anything to do on a Saturday, and it would be a good plan.
A young girl had nothing to do on a Saturday.
Yeah, so
Can you imagine?
and he was quite a persuasive character. You weren't really going to say no to him. And he would have had me typing up different things. Back in those days, it was a stencil, so you'd be typing up minutes of that for him. And that's why then he said, this it could do with volunteers and you'd love it and it would be great. And so that's how I got roped in. And I was delighted then that Bridie was there because, apart from Bridie, it was all men.
Yeah,
and so it was nice. We had that kind of, every Saturday. I loved it because, I grew up in a business. So at times my mother would not be too impressed because she'd have something for me to do, but I'd say, oh no, I have to go to credit union. I'm on, that's it. I would have been there as a volunteer, but then in 1988 I started part-time.
Yeah.
Now before that, if you were on holidays, I would step in for Francis.
It was amazing that they had the confidence in us to actually come in and put their faith in us and put their money in with the credit union rather than go to a bank at a particular time.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It was really.
Newport and Louisburgh credit unions merged with Westport in recent times. In Newport, it was founded by local business and community leader Jack Corbett.
It first started in our sitting room, and then eventually they came here. They came here when it amalgamated with Westport.
Do you remember those early days of your father running the credit union there? What was it like?
Bit chaotic because our house wasn't very big. and for some reason Daddy was doing the books on the dining table. And on Saturday nights, it was wherever it was being held after 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock or something like that. And Daddy would be gone doing the credit union, and Mummy would be left doing the pharmacy. I remember that the first loan given out was for 4 sheep, and the second loan was for 2 heifers. And they were, because the most reason it was set up was because the farmers didn't have a line of credit. Couldn't have a line of credit.
The Newport office opens on a Friday, and a staff member from Westport travels to the sub-office and is helped by local volunteers.
I think it's vital to the area. It's probably the only financial institution in the town. I think that would be all, isn't it? And I think it's wonderful. And I think, when you come in here, there's a great atmosphere. There are no banks of machines facing you. You're speaking to real people with a smile on their face, who's pleasant to everybody.
When I sit beside the people who come down from Westport, they speak. They speak to customers. They will explain stuff to customers. And the people from Westport will take the time to explain it to them, and then to make sure that they understand what they're saying. I couldn't speak highly enough of them. They're absolutely, it's vital.
It's the only place that you could talk face to face with someone of a financial background at all anymore. And not everyone's tech savvy, not everyone, there's illiterate people around the place, there's all sorts of people with extra needs, and the credit union matches those very well. It's about the only thing that still does.
Like Newport, it's a similar story in Louisburg.
Around 1984-85, there was an attempt made here to form our own credit union in Louisburg. And actually, that was the 3rd attempt that was made to form that credit union. And eventually it blossomed, and we succeeded. And in 1988, we were affiliated to the Irish League of Credit Unions, and we had our own credit union in Louisburg.
Once the people started coming in, it was unbelievable how quick it gathered momentum and really took off quicker than we ever thought was possible, At the beginning, there was no loans. It was just savings, and they were coming in and putting in maybe a £5 or maybe a £10, and they started coming every week. And finally, we built up and then giving out loans. The rules and regulations that came in after the bang in 2008, the amount of training everybody had to do, and you weren't allowed to do this or do that unless you had all these hours done, and everything was voluntary, and it got harder and harder.
Travel isn't a problem anymore, Henry. You can go in and out to Westport, and the bus goes in 4 or 5 times a week, so Westport was just as handy as Louisburg. But at the same time, we were anxious that Louisburg would always remain open on account of people who couldn't avail of travel or couldn't get travel or something like that. So we're only open now 1 day a week here in Louisburg.
The board of directors is also made up of dedicated volunteers, members who use their knowledge and skills to guide and grow the organisation.
On the credit union board, there are 11 directors. We have a very diverse board where we have people from all walks of life. We try to have somebody with a financial background, a legal background, HR, IT, and also somebody from a business background from the town. 2015 then, the board had been discussing to move premises. The premises we had been in Bridge Street was very small. There was 4 staff, and the credit union had been getting busier, and it was just our needs were not suitable for our needs. So we had looked at a number of premises around town. The old Bank of Ireland and the Mall came up for sale. It was a very beautiful building, very suitable to our needs. We surveyed it, and the building had to be totally renovated. It had lied idle for a number of years.
I was approached by a member of the board and asked would I consider joining the board as a voluntary member to bring what was probably a business acumen to the table. The purpose of the board is really to set a strategy for the credit union going forward. And that is to listen to the operation team, to listen to the rest of the directors, and to assimilate the information that's knocking around in terms of the market, the trends, the compliance, the regulations, and to agree with the operations on a strategy, short-term strategy to a long-term strategy. That's become more demanding because of the changes in regulations introduced by the central bank, by the sheer size of the credit union, and by the complication of its operations. What really has driven complications as well is IT, cybersecurity, and the number of areas that you've got to sign off just to do good business.
61 years later, savings have grown from just £0.50 to an incredible €112 million. A true testament to the trust, growth and community spirit that has defined the credit union from the start. So what does the future hold?
So we now have a membership of over 15,000 and we have that across all demographics. So on average we open about 40 to 50 accounts a month. So I suppose we're always trying to remain relevant and have something for each stage of that member journey, you know, from I suppose child right through all the different life stages, you know, getting first cars, going to college, then saving for a home, getting a mortgage, we provide mortgages as well, and then home improvement loans and all the things that right through a life cycle.
The Westport Credit Union reached a significant milestone recently when it celebrated its 60th anniversary with the local community. The success, of course, of the credit union made possible by the many volunteers, members, staff, management and board. So well done to all involved, and here's to the next 60 years.